Welcome back to part 2 of our series on security and encryption. So far we've talked about concepts involving encryption and how to generate a strong password and protect it from hackers. We've talked about securing emails and how websites can be encrypted. We've also talked about how, even after all that, information can still be leaked to someone snooping on the line. If Alice is connected to the Wi-Fi at a coffee shop sending an encrypted email, and Eve is elsewhere in the coffee shop snooping on her email, then even though the email is encrypted, she can still get the metadata. She can get Alice's email address, see that she's sending it to Bob's email address, and get the subject and other information. It's only the body of the email that gets encrypted. When Alice browses the web over HTTPS, Eve can't get the content of any of the web pages or see any of the form data that Alice fills out and sends to the server. But she can still tell which websites she went to. So how can we keep all of this private so the Eves of the world can't see what we're up to? Also, we may not trust the server we're connecting to, and we may want to hide our identity from it, including our IP address and where we're located. It's possible for a server, or any other point along the way, like the Great Firewall of China, to look at your IP address and determine through geolocation where you're located, and restrict your traffic accordingly. These technologies can help you get around geo-restrictions, like if you live in a country that's censoring parts of the internet, or to keep the destination web server from knowing where you're located. One way to hide your identity from websites and tracking advertisements is to use a private browsing window. It's called an incognito window in Chrome. This is a separate window where none of your cookies or other settings from your normal browsing session apply. It's like you've just cleared out all your cookies, except they're still there in the other window whenever you need to go back to them. So none of your login sessions, no ad tracking cookies, nothing will be in this window. Even if your other window is logged into Google, in the private window, Google will have no idea who you are. Well, not quite. You're still coming from the same IP address, and this is the main thrust of the problem. We need to find a way to obscure the IP address we're actually connecting from, and also to hide what we're doing from people on our network, other people in the coffee shop or hotel, or even our own ISP. They can all spy on us, and maybe even try to hack our machine and put malware in. ISPs engage in traffic shaping and other behavior that run contrary to the concept of the internet and basic security precautions. We need to both hide our IP address and encrypt our traffic from prying eyes. There are 3 common ways that have been developed to help ensure your online privacy: proxy servers, the Tor network, and VPNs. All of these have one potential issue. They only work up to a point. They can help keep your transmission secure from everyone else in the coffee shop or hotel. They can even help hide what you're doing from your ISP. But with each of these solutions, there will come a point where the request to the website or whatever you're connecting to is decrypted and sent in the clear. It just secures the first leg of the journey. It's not end-to-end. There's another issue. All 3 of these rely on some other machine on the internet making the request on your behalf. How much do you trust that machine? Potentially, that computer could see your traffic and tie it back to your identity. The first of these is a proxy server. Here you have a server that is somewhere else on the internet, which you will connect to. Alice sends the request, not to the website, but to the proxy server, which makes the request to the website on her behalf. The proxy server then gets the reply from the web server, which it then relays back to Alice. So from the point of view of the website, the originating IP address is that of the proxy server and not Alice. The first problem with the proxy server is that, although you can encrypt data to a proxy server, you don't have to. So Alice's connection may not be encrypted unless she specifically looks at the settings and makes sure. Another problem is that, in general, proxies only secure web traffic, so Alice can't utilize this for her email unless she uses her email provider's webmail interface. Also, it may be the case that not all of Alice's traffic is sent through the proxy. If she just configures her browser to use the proxy, then other software connecting in the background will connect normally, and Alice won't get any of the benefits of a proxy server on those, unless she configures those to use the proxy server as well. In Windows, you can set your internet options to use a proxy, and for the most part, the default setting in most software that connects to the internet is to use the system proxy settings. But it's no guarantee. Additionally, with proxies, you have a really big issue if you connect to a proxy server that it turns out isn't being quite so nice. It's important that Alice's trust in the proxy server is not misplaced. A malicious proxy server can be used by hackers or criminals to steal sensitive information, which can then be used for all sorts of purposes, including identity theft. One more problem with proxies is when one is installed on your computer without your knowing. This is one of many reasons why, if you buy a used computer on eBay, you should wipe the hard drive and install the OS yourself. You can't trust whoever is selling it to you not to stick a proxy on it. But there are some companies you'd think could be trusted, like Lenovo. Early in 2015, it was discovered that Lenovo had been shipping its laptops with software called Superfish, which, completely without the user's knowledge and no ability to opt out of it, set up a proxy server for the purpose of inserting ads into web pages visited by the user. That would be bad enough, but the Superfish software allowed the insertion of ads even into HTTPS websites. They did this by completely breaking the HTTPS security model. They replaced all of the trusted authorities with a single private key, and it was the same private key on all Superfish installations, all locked with the same bad password, Comodia. It didn't take long for security researchers to extract this key and post it online. This meant that anyone on the web could have used that private key to spoof the web credentials of any website, Amazon or Bank of America or whoever, to any user running a computer where Superfish had been installed. So proxies have a lot of potential issues, and as a result, generally aren't recommended by security experts. The second method we're going to cover is one that's gotten a lot of attention lately, the Tor network. Tor stands for the Onion Router, so named because you're protected by layers of encryption. The standard configuration works by relaying your request between 3 relays on the Tor network. Your computer picks 3 of them at random and uses their public keys to triply encrypt the request. The only thing coming from your computer is an encrypted packet sent to the first relay. No other information is available to snoops. The first relay receives the packet and decrypts it, only to find another encrypted packet inside and the address of the second relay, which it sends it to. The second relay is able to decrypt this layer, but like the first relay, all it finds is an encrypted packet with the address of the next relay. The last relay is known as an exit node. This relay decrypts the packet to find the original request, which it then makes to the server, and, like a proxy server, relays back the response, going through Tor's layers of encryption as it makes its way back to the originating machine. So like the proxy server, if Eve is snooping at any point along the way, she won't see anything, just blobs of pseudo-random noise. If she's snooping after the exit node sends the request, she'll see the request, but she won't be able to see that it was Alice that sent the packets. Tor is much more secure than a proxy, but you still have the problem of trusting the exit nodes, and you don't have a choice in which exit node you use. Now, unlike the proxy server, the exit node doesn't know which computer the packets were originally sent from. However, since Tor establishes a virtual identity for each connection, if the exit node or anything after that is able to see any identifying information showing that it's Alice sending the packets, they'll be able to deduce that Alice sent her other traffic as well. Now, Alice can change her identity on the Tor network at any time just by selecting a menu item, but if she forgets to do that before doing anything that might give her identity away, the game might be up, especially if Eve is part of the network snooping association and has all of this traffic recorded and archived. Another perceived advantage of Tor is the ability to host private websites on the Tor network, which can be accessed without leaving the encrypted Tor network. These are websites with names that end in .onion and must be accessed via Tor. This was how the notorious Silk Road website was accessed, and Silk Road's subsequent raiding and the conviction of Ross Ulbricht as its ringleader should give you an indication that Tor just isn't as anonymous as we'd like to think. Just as with regular web traffic the issue is the exit nodes, on Tor sites the issue is the rendezvous point. This is basically the last node before the actual physical machine that hosts the site. Obviously, this node is going to need the IP address of the actual server, meaning that if someone figures out what this rendezvous point is and can get access to it, they can find the actual site in the real world. For Silk Road, it's thought that either the FBI or the NSA put thousands of potential rendezvous points online, figured out where the rendezvous point for Silk Road was, and ran a denial of service attack against it. This forced the assignment of a new rendezvous point for Silk Road, and they just kept that up until one of their nodes became the rendezvous point, at which point they could track the server on the actual internet. So while Tor affords some protection against people in the coffee shop snooping on your conversation, it won't protect you fully against law enforcement, large organized hacker groups, or oppressive regimes. Worse, if you don't understand the vulnerabilities, it can actually lead you into a false sense of security, which is always worse than no security at all. Finally, we have the VPN, the Virtual Private Network. This is by far the best of the three. It was made so that people could have a secure connection to their corporate network from home or on the road. People on their company's network have access to lots of services that aren't and shouldn't be available from the internet. But there has always been a need for telecommunication. Used to be, people would use a modem to dial in, but this had issues, not the least of which was the expense of running a dial-up server with several different phone lines in. If all of the phone lines were taken up, someone had to wait for someone else to drop off before they could connect. But once internet access became more common, VPNs were developed as an alternative. Now the company only needed a single server, a VPN server, connected to the internet, and as many people as needed to could connect from home. They would run the VPN software and connect to the server with a username and password. The VPN server sets up an encrypted tunnel over the internet. The ordinary network packets intended for the private corporate network, are encrypted, and the encrypted packet stuck into an ordinary internet packet. Once the VPN server receives the packet, it can decrypt it and forward the packet onto the network. From the point of view of the user, it's exactly as if they're working on their office computer, and the transmission is protected from prying eyes by the encryption. VPNs are still used by companies today to help their employees and executives telecommute and stay securely connected. But thanks to the need for privacy, there's been another application for them that's come up in recent years. Pretty much anyone who wants to can purchase VPN service from a number of providers that have servers in many different cities around the world. You just use the VPN software to attach to one of these servers, and your transmission is protected from the prying eyes of everyone else in the coffee shop or hotel, or from your ISP. Moreover, if you live in a country where the internet is censored or the people oppressed, you can VPN to a server outside your country and access the internet just like anyone else can. Connect to a server in New York and browse the internet just like Americans do. Connect to a London server and you can access anything the British can. No one will be any the wiser. There are a few issues to keep in mind. Like the proxy server, you have to be able to trust your VPN provider, and some people want to make sure they're secure even from them by signing up with an anonymous ID and paying them through Bitcoin, as many support. They should run their own DNS servers to keep the websites you go to private as well. But most importantly, they shouldn't keep any logs that allow them to match an IP and timestamp to a particular user. If they do, then the NSA could send them a security letter and require them to hand over the information. They don't have to keep logs, but if they do, and they fall under NSA jurisdiction or GHQG in the UK or whatever the equivalent authority is, then they have to turn them over on request. So there are lots of ways to secure yourself online. Unfortunately, most of them use the same insecure basis for authenticating you as a valid user: passwords. Next time, we'll finish up part 2 by talking about how passwords can be made more secure and how they can't be made more secure, and we'll also look at a new technology that may make passwords obsolete entirely.